Welcome to House Rule, a podcast about role-playing. You are listening to our 31st confirmed episode. We have been truly resurrected after what feels like a long time spent between recordings. Oh boy, we have some fun stuff. Some fun stuff this time. Oh, my name is Ed, and I am joined by... Let's
Ebo.
call off, guys. Ebo.
This is Jeff.
Lee.
And Rory.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a
Ignore
really
the
long
names.
time since we've done a podcast.
No, it hasn't.
It's been, like a year and a half, 2 years?
Nah.
It seems like yesterday.
At least a couple
in
weeks.
that I don't remember what happened then.
At least a couple of weeks. I will agree to at least a couple of weeks. Can't go wrong, because I know what happened in the last couple of weeks.
At least a couple of weeks.
Go back further than 2, and it's a mystery.
I acknowledge that.
So, my man Ebo dug up a thing, an internet-type quiz.
I did.
Oh man, did I ever
A
do that quiz.
fantastic.
I have
internet
never felt
quiz.
so much like I was doing actual work. when I was
There
taking an
were a
internet
lot
quiz than
of
this one.
questions. So
There
here's the
were.
first quiz question. Ebo, where did you get this quiz from?
I got this quiz from some person's page on Google
Internet?
Plus. Internet.
Oh, nice.
And
You don't remember
It-
who though, do you?
no, the website is easydamus.com.
easydamus?
EASYDAMUS.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then just go for the D&D quiz that's there. Which D&D character am I?
Mhm.
Something like that. And
When
yeah. So
we
did
first
everyone
got
do the
this, I grabbed it. I had my phone, bereft of computer as I was at the time. I started doing it, and then this was like bedtime. I was sitting on the edge of my bed like, I'm going to go to sleep after this. And so I was going through it, and I think I probably got over halfway through before I realized that it was not going to get over. And so I quit doing it, and I was like, this is bogus. I'm not going to do this. And then you like posted another post about it where you said it gives you like all of these different details, and I was like, oh boy, that sounds kind of cool. I kind of want to know.
Yeah.
And so I actually did it and finished it today.
That's how they get you.
I'm kind of no, it isn't. There's usually 10 questions, and then you're
No,
like
I'm
one
saying-
of 4 different answers, Jeff.
If that's
Now
how
I
they
got
get
the-
you, if
they
by that's
got me
how they
by-
get you,
Having the greatest
Yeah.
D&D quiz out there.
I'm
by
gonna
that's how they get
say
you mean they offer you something cool.
this
yeah, I
is
guess so.
the first personality quiz I've ever taken.
Oh really?
Yeah,
See.
That would explain why you failed it.
I did. So if this is
Oh,
basically
yes,
going to tell you
absolutely.
what kind of D&D character you are. Like you're supposed to answer these questions like real life, basically.
Answer these questions
138
honestly.
questions.
I answer these questions honestly, although there are a few that
Out of
just
129.
Yeah.
Also, I
in real
feel like
time.
after looking over the
In the real world.
statistics on the site, I feel like everybody else lied. So after answering the questions honestly, and being the modest, kind, wise person that I am, I say
Apparently.
we go over. No, I say we go over
Apparently.
to our stuff and then talk about the averages later.
I think before we go over our stuff, we should guess what other people have.
All right.
Okay, well, I
I already
told-
know what
we
Ebo
know
and
them.
Jeff got.
Okay, I didn't look at their post.
I'm gonna
What did
guess
they get?
then. I'm
No, we-
thinking Rory's a lawful evil wizard. That's my guess.
Rory
I
is...
was gonna guess that Rory is a lawful neutral, probably wizard. I mean, honestly, nothing else but wizard. Probably maybe an elf wizard.
I would say neutral. True neutral. And I'd go with wizard only, and not sorcerer.
I would guess Rory's a neutral, good human
Human.
wizard.
And yeah,
You guys know me fairly well. That is obvious from your answers. all of you have guessed wizard. I am indeed apparently a fifth
Level 5 wizard.
level 5 wizard.
Damn it!
Nothing was even close. Honestly, it's like 7 points above anything else for a class. So it's pretty
nice job.
pretty clearly like unequivocally wizard. The next closest after that was paladin.
Mm.
You're lawful
Nice.
good, huh?
So you're lawful neutral?
Real good.
I took this quiz twice.
I only
I-
took it once.
I took it earlier today, and then I only remembered one part of the results, really. I didn't remember the breakdown, so I took it again just before this. And my alignment did switch between earlier this morning and this evening.
Which is exactly correct for personality quizzes.
By 1 dot. When I took
Oh.
it this morning, I was lawful good. Now I am lawful neutral by 1 point.
Oh.
And both
Nailed
times
it.
it was 32 and 33 in each of those. So pretty strongly
Wow.
in those. And it's just barely between those two.
Well,
Man.
can I at least say all your
Should've done
characters are
lawful.
lawful evil wizards? If you know, is that,
Oh,
is
come
that
on.
at
I
least
almost
fair?
never play an evil character.
Okay, well,
He almost never is evil on paper.
I almost never actually play an evil character.
Evil on paper. I'm gonna go with evil
that
on
is
paper.
true. Just misunderstood.
Not evil on paper.
Rory, you already said we know you well enough.
Yeah. I play evil characters. I am a good person, really.
We got it.
So,
That's-
for Ed,
Now you have proof.
I think that Ed is probably a well,
Tell me
depending
more.
on the honesty that Ed was answering with, I'm going to say he was a true neutral dwarven sorcerer.
Wow.
Sorcerer.
Chaotic good
Anybody
human
else?
bard.
I'm going to go with. You gotta play the numbers.
Are there numbers to play here? I'm pretty sure we all got played by the numbers when
I'll
we
say
took this quiz.
neutral. I'll say neutral good. Human. I hope you're a gnome. I really
Well,
do.
I want to see where you're going with
Um,
this.
And let's see. The last one would be. What do they have?
I'm really
I'm gonna-
classes.
I have the core
I'm gonna
class.
go with wizard. Wizard.
All right.
Did Jeff venture a guess?
I would say
I said chaotic good human bard.
All right.
What did Rory say?
I'll say neutral good human sorcerer.
Okay.
This is
Sorcerer.
demoralizing. I'm a neutral good
Oh.
human wizard, but I'm only 4th level. Whereas apparently Rory got the first one.
I was guessing that was like
Yeah,
the thing where they like ask how old you are and like how
Yeah.
experienced you think you are
To
for
be
your
fair,
age.
I think that Rory's been on more legitimate real world adventures than I have, which probably rationalizes the extra XP, but I still think it's a little unfair.
Also, when you have children, don't they get some of your XP?
It's well,
Yeah, dude.
they
You split
they're
off.
cohorts.
we're not there yet, but we're going to talk about Mage later. But it's like a legacy. You have to give them some of your XP that you get every session.
No, that's not how
Not
that
in Mage
works.
2nd edition.
No,
Oh, you have to split off some of your XP to begin with to make the legacy, then, right?
the student pays the
I'm
XP,
glad
but
it is
the
making
mentor gets the
things up.
XP. I'm not trying
Wait,
to split
you're
hairs, but
how are you not the
Yeah.
student in this? I'm confused.
anyway,
The student is also.
I want
the
to go over a few classes that I got pretty close with. I was 4 points lower on Bard, so Bard is tied for 2nd place, which is kind of. I mean, there's just a few questions that pop out in my mind. Like, there's one that's like said something about like you use your personality to like control situations or to entertain others, and I was just like, yeah, well, I don't do the first one for sure. So yeah, I guess I
And then I went with the first one. I thought, yeah, personality to control situations makes way more sense than entertaining people.
That's why I assumed Roy was a sorcerer. Just saying.
tied for 2nd place. I got Monk, which I'm almost attributing 100% to a question where I said, I think if I punch someone as hard as I could, they definitely get hurt. But I think I kind of like flip-flopped on that one because I was like, there's like an answer where they probably get hurt, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it would hurt them. I'm not sure. I don't think they'd go to the hospital, but I don't know what they mean. Like, yeah, if I punch somebody as hard as I can, it's gonna hurt them. So I think that's what it's basing on.
Said it. They might die.
I got a 0 for Ranger. I don't know.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
I answered indoorsy to all of the outdoors versus indoors questions. I got 6 in Druid. I got 0 in Ranger.
Oh.
I
don't know how
I
that-
had some points in everything,
Mhm.
at least.
So did I. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 0 Ranger.
Yeah, I did.
So wait,
okay,
I
so-
did say.
Oh, well, I can't
I
say.
did say I would.
Because we have others.
There was one question where it said like, would you rather spend like 2 hours outdoors or 2 hours at a concert? And I think I said outdoors. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I said where I would willingly go outside.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't like concerts that much. Yeah.
Well, those would like those.
I
There's
said
a lot of those
concerts.
like two things that aren't really opposites of each
Outdoors
other, and so
sucks.
you're just like whichever one's the least wrong. Anyway, let's move on to somebody else's
I
picks
actually had
that
an
we
issue
don't know
because
yet.
it was.
All right,
Well,
Ed, you got to field a guess for Ebo here.
I gotta guess
Is it
Evo.
me?
Oh
Yeah.
boy,
I'm.
Yeah. You're
Evo's
next
gotta
on my screen.
be. I want to say he's gonna be neutral. I want him to be some kind of creature because I don't know. I don't even have any idea what you would answer. I think the questions that get you a different species are the ones where they say like the
Do you
weirdly
value
anachronistic
or
where they say
gracefulness?
the people in my town think I'm a freak, something like that.
And then you end
So
up with
yeah, I don't
Chris
know.
Nevlin.
Like,
and then I
neutral.
end up with
Neutral. I want to say dwarf, but that's probably informed by the fact that he's been playing a dwarf so much lately.
He can't think of anything else. It's just-
Neutral gnome. Gnome. Wizard.
Okay.
That's what I want it to be.
Well, Jeff and I already I already know everything
I
about
want to
Evo.
hear after Rory guesses. I want to hear your guys's what they would have been.
I would have guessed neutral, good,
Well, I
human,
wanna-
druid. That's what I would have guessed for you. Go ahead, Rory.
Neutral good. I'll just go with the wagon and say gnome. Gnome druid.
No, I'm druid.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.
I don't know. I probably would have said like true neutral human bard.
What do we got here?
What do we have here? I was true neutral.
Nice.
By a lot. It was true neutral then I guess not a lot. My evil was really low. My neutral evil was not as low.
I mean, neutral.
The neutral and chaotic were the two higher ones. All my neutrals were the highest, the mid ones, and then the good ones were like I had 14 in lawful and chaotic good, I think.
Yeah.
I was a human, but thank you for
All right.
caring.
You're not a gnome, are
And-
you sure?
And despite what other people would think, I got one of the mixed classes. I was level 4
What?
total. Yeah, you can get a primary and secondary class.
Holy
and
wow!
it was-
I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought that everyone got 2, and then I
Oh.
learned very much
We
that
got
I
a
was
gish
wrong.
over here.
We do have a gish, except it is a gish. I got wizard as my primary class and rogue as my secondary class.
Hmm.
Basically a bard.
Arcane
Yeah.
trickster over there.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well have played a bard. I don't know.
I understand it. I'm kind of a shifty individual.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the arcane
Rogue.
trickster is kind of a different.
You,
ball
you
trick.
do
Oh.
steal stuff.
hey,
I've seen you
we're
walk off
live
with
here.
loaves
We
of
can't
bread.
say that.
I've seen you
I
walk off
think-
with loaves of bread, cheese, milk.
I think I guessed a non-human race just because I wanted to. I wanted to believe that somebody was going
I
to
thought
be.
for sure I was going to be a dwarf.
Well, I
Okay.
don't know. Like, I don't even know what answers here like are dwarf answers. You know?
Well,
I will tell you
I
that,
think the thinness question relates to race.
Oh,
I think it's better to be
Like tough or
stocky.
graceful?
Yeah, some of those I think relate back to race.
there was definitely a question. Was do I think it's worse to be too thin or too stocky? And I definitely said too thin, which is definitely a dwarf answer. But no, gnome was my
But also,
second,
it's-
my runner-up race, and so I was like, nah, I guess if it's not a human, maybe a
Did I
gnome.
give you the races?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's down
gives you
there.
a breakdown of everything. It
Oh, I missed
pretty
it.
much just looks like,
Yeah.
how many questions that we tried to trick you into answering these different things. Did you
I
get?
love it.
And I do
That is-
too. I think that I think
Okay, so the other classes actually, I got Ranger was like a 6. My Barbarian was 2. 2 or 0. I think it was 2. 2 was my lowest. Paladin was my 3rd, which makes sense because I guess Rory also got Paladin, and I can see that.
some Paladin in the mix.
Paladin was my closest, and then after that was Monk, but after that, nothing was very
Oh, Paladin, and then I think it was Druid and Monk were next. And then also Fighter and Ranger were after that.
See, I wonder if you can get class
That's 6 or
combinations
something.
that can't work. Like if you can end up as like
Paladin,
an evil
Barbarian.
paladin or like a non-neutral druid
That
or
would be awesome.
This
I'm
seems
guessing
pretty
that they
well
take-
thought out. I would almost
Yeah.
guarantee that they planned for that.
a chaotic monk.
I was gonna say maybe that's why I got a 0 on something, but Ranger doesn't have any alignment requirements, does it? No.
I
So
don't
he
know.
said that.
So you guys were saying that you thought I was evil. I'll have you to know that I actually have a 0 score in evil on this quiz.
Wow.
I do
nice.
too, but I don't think it's that hard to get a 0 in evil. You just have to not say you would
I
betray
did-
your friends and
I
kill.
did get a 4 in Lawful Evil. Apparently something about me says Lawful Evil.
Don't look at the alignments. Scroll down to good versus evil results.
Oh,
And you'll see how many you
yeah.
score in the good evil axis by itself.
sure.
Or neutral evil.
Yeah. I got at least a couple of points in chaotic evil because I'm a little
See,
chaotic,
now I
guys.
have to have
Don't
this
sweat
opened
it.
up because I took it earlier. I gotta redo it while we're doing this. What is
You didn't,
Hey,
you
what
didn't
do-
save the thing?
Lee, I don't
I-
remember what yours was, so I'm just gonna
No.
toss out a guess for you here.
Sure.
I'm thinking Lee's like a level 4 neutral evil human human cleric. Let's go cleric.
What would make you think cleric?
I don't.
I don't
I
know. You
think
played a
that-
clerik once, so I mean, I don't know.
That is true. I played a lot of clerics for a long
What
time.
would... Okay, we
I-
want to
I
hear
think-
what Rory and Ed have, and then I will
Yeah.
say what my guess is.
I think you are a chaotic evil human rogue.
I want a neutral good human bard. Sorry, bro.
I would
Good.
have
At
said...
least you don't think I'm a villain. Straight up villain.
I don't think it's that easy to-
we need chaotic evil
character
rogues in the world.
is.
Yeah.
I would have said chaotic neutral or neutral. I would probably would have went with neutral. Human sorcerer.
Okay, so I am a true neutral human bard.
Yeah, pretty close.
For what it's worth, the as far as my neutrality far outstripped my other ones. I had like a 24 score in true neutral, and then aside from the lawful and chaotic neutrals, which were both above 20, my next highest one was neutral good, which was 8. As far as the law and evil axis, again neutral 14, good 8, evil 3, so vastly neutral. I chose almost all the don't care answers.
See, I had law of 19.
Oh no, my neutral on that was 10, and my chaos was 7.
My chaos was 2.
So as far as race goes, I had a 14 for human, and the spread between the rest of them was distressingly close. I had 10, elf, gnome, and halfling, and then after that it just peters off. Like I don't know, my lowest was at half orc at 2. So I guess I don't have tusks, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
And I'm already above the requisite age to be like an old man as a half orc, so I think that's pretty good. My bard was 18, and my next highest was a 16 sorcerer. After that, it was like 14 rogue and wizard, and then
Half-orc bard is a pretty hard lot in life, anyway.
that is true. After that was like rogue and wizard were tied at 14, and then the rest of them were just kind of my lowest were cleric and druid, because I
What was
basically
your
crapped on
evil
I basically
score?
crapped on religion whenever I got the opportunity
Yeah,
in this
what was
quiz.
his
My
evil
evil was
score?
3.
I wanted this thing to just randomly call one of you guys like evil villains or something, but
Jeff,
I just
I
didn't.
didn't
Jeff-
choose any of the
personality
backstab
test.
answers.
What level were you, Lee?
Jeff,
4. I was level 4.
Jeff, what was your evil score?
I don't know. Well, did we go over everybody?
Nope, Jeff is still left.
So we
Still
shouldn't.
lost.
So we
I
should
think
guess
that
for Jeff first.
I wonder, like, what you
Right.
have to answer to just max your level. What's the highest level you can get at
You
this?
probably had to
in
pick
this
like
thing?
an old yet not dying age
100.
and say that you're
okay.
experienced and be an elf. And, yeah.
All right. Well, we got to figure out what Jeff is here. Huh.
I think he is a true neutral human monk.
Wow.
Ed?
Monk, huh?
Because
I
he used
think
to do
that Jeff
martial
is.
arts.
I do think that Jeff is neutral. I think that he's got the cowardly spirit of a neutral.
If Jeff is true neutral, doesn't that make all three of you true neutral in that house?
Yeah. If that were the
What makes
case.
a man neutral? Okay, I think he's a human. I suspect he's human. And class-wise, buddy, wizard. I think wizard.
All right.
I mean, if I did not know the answers,
Mm-hmm.
which I do because I'm a cheater,
You
and
are.
because I talked to Jeff earlier,
Yeah.
I probably would have said something like lawful evil half elf wizard.
Wow.
Wow, Jeff, you just didn't win with Lee. He thinks very highly of you.
We all think that the
Oh,
other ones are evil. I think that's
Alrighty,
important
I
to
think
note.
I think that Jeff is just a little bit of a cold-hearted bastard.
Okay.
So
What's
You're
your
half
retro
elf, so people think
retro
I
guess?
would have said neutral human and then sorcerer or wizard. Maybe a bard.
All right. Well, this quiz thinks more highly of me than Lee does.
Heyo.
I ended up as a true neutral human sorcerer.
Oh, okay.
I would
The
have wizard.
the interesting thing about the alignment though is that it's like almost perfectly symmetrical. Like true neutral is like at 29, and then all of them like going like up and down one by one. They're like within a point. It's like
So you have
weird.
like a
So you're-
alignment pyramid.
You're very apathetically true neutral.
Yeah, lots of neutral and
Yeah, so you're even
equivalent
neutral
portions
about
of good
the
and
amount of
evil.
neutrality. Man,
So Jeff,
this
what
is
were your
fun.
other
Also point
races?
out
How close were
he
you
had-
to not being human?
Very. It was human at 13 and half elf at 12.
Hmm.
Half
Hey,
elves.
what about other classes?
Half elves are hard. Wizard was the next, and everything else was way lower.
hey, pretty close.
Yeah.
So now we should make these characters and play them for our next game.
Oh God.
I don't want to.
You know, I ran a
okay,
game that had like a character quiz, and I thought it'd be cool, like to use a quiz like this to like make characters for like a one-off session or something. That'd be
So how many
awesome.
spellcasters would we have in our party of 5?
All of them.
I'm not in
I'm pretty
love
sure
with
the
my
closest thing
ability
to a fighter.
scores.
We have an arcane trickster basically with a rogue wizard,
I'm a
right?
bard. I
We
can
have
be
a
any kind of
bard.
Bard.
Oh, my stats! Right, I also got a
The
stat
only
score.
melee stats. Yeah,
were
we
you-
have
Ed,
stat
what were you again?
scores.
I'm a wizard.
We have 2 wizards, a sorcerer, a bard, and a arcane trickster.
And
Yeah,
a
the
melee
majority of the
class.
people who take a D&D related quiz are gonna be.
None
think-
of us are fighter people. That's
That's
what that
true.
means.
So as far as my stat scores go, I forgot to mention this. I do have 11 strength and 12 constitution
Nice.
because
Right
I said
on.
that I was weak and not very tough and also very thin. And but I did have 14 intelligence and then 13 wisdom, charisma, and dex.
Yeah,
The,
intelligence. What kind of do they think I am? Not a good one.
How much intelligence did they give you?
14.
They gave me 14 intelligence.
Like I said, I was humble.
Hey man, 14 is still a +2.
What did they
Yeah, I
give
mean,
you
14
guys?
is carrying on
I
to
wanted
level
to be
7, but
intelligent.
and I'm going to be in trouble. What was that?
I want to know what they are. Mine were 12, 12, 13. No, it's 12, 13, 13, 14, 12, 11. So my
I got a
intelligence
13
is
and-
14, and my wisdom is 12, and my charisma is 11. The endurance,
I got-
the constitution, I think, makes sense.
I wound up with a 13 strength, probably because I said I could lift a normal amount of weight for a person of my age, and because I said that if I punched someone, it would really hurt.
One more point.
Well, tough,
Did
I'm
anyone
really-
end up with exceptional scores in anything?
Or is like, I got a 32 charisma.
No, I had a 17 intelligence.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I didn't bring 14 in my, in my main.
I had a 17 intelligence and a 16 wisdom.
It says in the thing, like they have like a frequently asked questions about this thing, and they said that it tends towards a little bit like 1 or 2 points higher than actual people, and also
That's
it's it basically these are your 4d6 scores and not your 3d6. Also, amusingly, the stats averages, what I can determine is that people lie on this.
I'm pretty sure that's why.
Everybody, like the average, like see here, like the
Pretty
average
sure that's why it
intelligence is
sides towards
15.
46.
Like everyone's like 15s and stuff, and I'm like, man, I got like my high scores of 14. I rolled bad on
Would everybody
46.
real quick give me their lowest stat? Just
11.
out of curiosity.
Well,
Charisma.
11.
Dexterity.
Oh, what did you get, Rory?
11
Wisdom?
charisma. 11 charisma.
Okay, fair enough.
I know that's my failing. Okay, I was
So,
very much expecting
I'm
that.
surprised that I had 11 charisma, but we'll see.
I had a fairly low constitution, also comparatively at 12.
So if you were straight up average, according to this quiz, you would be a human wizard with 13 strength, 14 dexterity, 13 constitution, 15 wisdom, 15 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 13 charisma. You would be less than 1% likely to be a barbarian.
This thing
Oh, you
gave
would also
me
be-
a
you would also
wisdom
be-
of 9.
Sense.
Neutral good. You'd be neutral good.
Give you
Wait.
a wisdom of 9, Ed?
9.
Also, according to
And-
this, with over
I love it.
more than 1,000 characters created, nobody was level 8 or 9, but there were at least a few people who were level 10.
You had a wisdom of 9?
Yeah, a wisdom of 9. And there was one of the questions I remember specifically answering asked about if you think wisdom is important, and I definitely said it was. But I think maybe that's the wrong answer. Maybe thinking that wisdom is important isn't wise.
It is possible
Damn.
to roll 4 1s on 46,
But the point is,
or to roll 9 on 46.
okay.
Well, anyway, this quiz is pretty fun. If you like personality quizzes, or even if you don't, like
I
me,
hate it.
you might want to go check it out. It's kind of fun and like fun, campy role-playing thing
So
to do.
you'll take every single quiz that someone throws in your path.
Yeah, and I hate all of them.
Oh boy.
I don't.
I
You love
usually
them.
hate them.
They're the greatest.
But we're also here to
except-
talk about
except for
this new edition of Mage coming out that I am convinced is not a myth, that is a real thing that's happening.
It's a real thing.
Finally,
Thank you,
yep.
Dave B.
I'm glad to know that my hype,
My savior.
the article I wrote about how hyped I am about this is so far turned out to be relatively accurate.
It
I'm
is,
still pretty hyped about it.
you know, it's been inconsistent, like off and on, but Mage is this game, Mage the Awakening, that we keep going back to, like every couple of years, pretty much.
Mm.
And
The setting
Yeah, I
is
mean-
so good.
Ugh, so good.
The setting is really good. Then
It's the
changeling,
best World of
but
Darkness.
what can you do?
I agree that it's the best World of Darkness. I find Mage frustrating, I'll be honest.
I can see
Rory's
that.
like,
Yeah.
it's a little loosey-goosey for me.
It's a little bit too, well, whatever, and inconsistent between GMs, and
Mm-hmm.
just I don't like the way the Arcana overlap, or fail to overlap.
There are some things that are not great about
And
this system.
that bothers me. That said, I have enjoyed almost every Mage game I've been.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
despite
you don't
all
have
of
to tell
that,
me anything.
still
about the
pretty
current
solid.
one. Just-
Except
Just-
meta
I'll
stability, I
just
think.
like
That
it.
game was stupid.
It's still stupid. Thank you.
But no,
What can
Ed's
you do with the wisdom of 9?
well, you know, Ed's only got 9 wisdom, but he's doing his best to run this Mage game. We play it almost every Monday. You should tune in. It's on the stream and stuff. We've been having a good time,
We incorporate some second edition things.
and
Wait,
yeah.
like D&D second edition? Yeah, I get more attacks every other round.
Only if you're specialized.
Only from
The plan
Specialized, right?
is to
Which I am.
incorporate more.
Get
I've
it? Second
been
edition things? Okay. Moving along.
terribly lax in incorporating more of those.
Oh boy.
We're kind of in a middle ground where it's like
Right.
God Machine rules. They really took White Wolf and said, you know, we want to strip a lot of this crumb out of here, and then add
It's good.
some floofy crumb that is, I don't know, it's still kind of crumb. But then, but we're still playing Mage with the first edition rules, and they kind of don't fit together all that well. And so we're really pumped about the second edition game. I guess
like the conditions from God Machine. I think they're really cool.
So do I.
I
really
like the
those.
idea behind them. I don't
Yes.
know. They seem clunky.
I think my basic reaction to almost everything, every one of the new additional rules from the God Machine Chronicles rules adjustment, is I really like the idea of it, but so help me, it is not sticking.
We are not a team that that does things well when they tie into the experience points rewards.
I don't.
When stuff in the system ties into XP, aside from giving it to people, we tend to not incorporate very well at all. And conditions tie directly into that with like the beats and stuff, and like a lot of other weird stuff does, and we just don't. We cheese it. We cheesed it almost immediately with the XP and meta stability. Like 2 sessions in, we were like, eh.
I am not willing to place the blame of that system on us as opposed to the system just because of that trend. But you're not wrong.
I kind of think that the thing with beats conditions, the various beat acquisition methods that are quite various and sundry are it's I want to say like it would require a lot of buy-in from everyone, but that isn't, I don't think, even the limit of it. I think that for my taste, I don't really like it in general.
It would require a lot of buy-in from everyone. It would also require the GM to kind of keep track of beats and cause beat-related things to happen constantly. And then it would require the players to be comfortable just playing their characters and not be trying to cause beat-related things to happen. And no matter how mature you think you are, like, one player kind of pushes the envelope and causes a bunch of beat stuff to happen, and then other people start being like, I don't know, and I don't know. It's just...
I think it harkens to the, like, I think the big fault in all the World of Darkness games, old and new, and I guess I call this a fault, and I think that it's really a fault that we all share and that the game shares, is that it counts on you really, really trying to play your character and play interesting and not try to game the system at all. Yeah. It really just collapses under the weight of you gaming the system.
Even like a little bit.
I guess to focus in a little bit more on Mage-specific stuff, they've been previewing a lot of stuff for a while, and there was a very long span when the development stage was, I think, in like redline edits. Dave basically just stopped doing development blogs just so that he could actually do the work. And
oh man,
that
was a dark period of my life.
Seriously, I'm pretty, like, I'm not the hardest into the Mage development thing. I'm sure, of all people, there are a lot of like forum dwellers who I wonder if they do anything else.
I love that you use the word like it's a Monster Manual entry.
No. Okay, I am a forum dweller too.
CR7.
Like, that's one of the things that I do most days is I'll go to the forums and see what's new. I'll specifically check if Dave B has posted anything on the forums, and then, but like, I feel like there are these people who are there and they're driving their own discussions, which is something that I don't always have time to really partake in. In the past couple of days, there's been a bunch of pretty lively chit chat that I've tried to get into unsuccessfully. Tried to participate in unsuccessfully. I was very into it. Because some of the mechanics are actually sort of getting out there. Like they have, I feel like they've sort of been teasing it in sections, such that you couldn't really put it together by yourself. But now we've kind of crossed that threshold where enough of the new material has been revealed that I think it's ready to start using some of that material on a kind of probationary basis. The big thing that they haven't revealed they haven't revealed any specifics about is what, if any, changes are going to be made to spell factors, which is pretty much the bread and butter of the whole magic system. Like, even more so than in the first edition, when you cast a spell, it is essentially a series of a pool of dice that you take a series of penalties away from in order to decide what the spell is going to do. Then you add in dice from yantras, or basically.
Oh man, I love the term yantra.
What's a yantra?
Techniques and tools. They're sort of using it as as a term for all magical techniques, tools, and basically other things that can give you an advantage.
The best example I saw, like, where in one of the blogs he talks about using the sun as like a focus for casting like spells that might affect the brightness of light, and I was like, yeah, that's actually really cool. Like, creative and clever mages can get bonuses from good planning.
It seems like it requires a lot more creativity and preparation to go into an actual spell, which I think really harkens to the storyteller system itself, where it really wants that narrative to go into what's happening.
Yeah.
What used to be a pretty vanilla system where you could pick dedicated magical tools that would aid your spellcasting in certain specific ways, and combined with certain, I had a chance to play a legacy that I really liked in Jeff's first Mage game, called the Thrice Great, which are kind of sort of astrologically themed spirit mages.
They are really cool,
and they have this very this short but extremely evocative section in the legacy description where it basically gives you examples of like ways to get specific magical sympathy with the different planets. And so it's like different tools and colors, materials, and other techniques for each planet. And it was just like, when I first read that, I was just like, why isn't that the thing that every single mage does for all of their spells?
Yeah, it's like, this is awesome. And why doesn't this matter? Like,
in the first edition, like, ritual spell casting was supposed to involve a sacrament, which was basically some sort of material component that was significant to the spell that you had to burn or destroy during the casting. And it was mentioned in about one place in the core book. And I think they talked about it a little more in Tome of the Mysteries, but I never really incorporated it. And that, like, those sorts of sympathies and, for instance, making a sacrifice of some kind are now all under this same umbrella of yantras, which is basically limited by your gnosis. You can use a certain number of these things, and using them on the fly is hard. It takes a little extra time. Using them as part of a ritual is pretty simple, as long as you don't exceed your limit. And then you can basically, each one you use gives you some amount of dice, usually 1 or 2, but some of them can get you higher numbers if you have, if you're applying them correctly. And so things like, what was that?
Can you give an example?
So for instance, one example, like places or times, sort of like what Lee was saying, like definitely casting in a demean or in a supernal verge, which may have some resonance for you all, given the events of the last section I Yeah, okay. We'll give you. I think a demean just gives you a +1 to your casting because it's
So
good.
magical.
It might have other benefits too. I rather imagine it does. Um, Dedicated magical tools, I believe, give you either a +1 or a +2, in addition to some paradox mitigating effect like they had before, but it hasn't really been
Now,
explained
is that
what
only
that
for like
exactly is.
specific spells that they relate to? Like if you have a dedicated magical tool that's like my character has like a set of like ancient coins of specific materials that are
Sure.
like bound together with twine or something like that. Would they be only related to like things related to those things, or is it
I
more
mean,
loosey goosey?
I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it in the first edition book. When they describe tools, they go into a lot of description about different path and order tools. So I
Hmm.
kind of think that those things are going to be relevant. So you can maybe have like, and what exactly a dedicated tool is um, kind of unknown to me at this point. I think that you'll probably have to draw a line at some point, but there are a lot of things you can do, like
So with Yantra then,
mhm,
um,
yeah,
would the giant spell we cast in Jeff's game, his last mage game, to communicate across worlds?
sure.
The things we set up in that, would that be examples of Yantra, like the choosing these a corresponding point in the geography, choosing a corresponding point in time, finding a lineage member, someone who shared some sort of connection that way?
Yeah, that is a good example of that. In
Ashes.
that particular game, that was like an extraordinary feat we had to perform in order to accomplish an almost impossible uh, task. Whereas in this, it's more like I mean, the more extraordinary, the better. If I'm running the game, but they like for for instance, I just pulled up the article because I wanted to be a little more informed. Environment is listed as one of the possible yantras, where it's just places and times that reflect the sort of uh, the sort of spell you're trying to cast. So they talk about like use the sun at noon to see through falsehoods, um, or like yeah, I guess the moon the moon reflected in a pool to scry or something to that effect.
It sounds like all of these natural
Mm-hmm.
interactions that you would think would have in a game where there's mages in like this sort of modern magic, modern fantasy setting,
Right.
now have a place in the game system, and
Yeah.
that really will help to reinforce sort of the creativity of it. And,
Whereas,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
one part of,
magical.
and for example, in Dresden
Hmm.
Files, that really
Sure.
stuck out with something similar. If you, I don't know if you've read very much of them,
I know
but
Jeff has read all of them.
early
I have.
on,
Twice.
he captures sunlight in a napkin, in a
Yeah.
handkerchief, and then like in the next book, he says he can't do it anymore, and he says why, and it's a really interesting one that related like that. He says basically you can't do it if you're not happy.
You're right. I,
That was one that kind of stuck with me for situational magic.
Um,
sure.
my
Mhm.
question is it are these yantras if you're using the moon, is it kind of like the concept that magic is still based a little bit in nature, or is it something that's
I think the
or do you think they
idea
added it
is
like that?
the idea in the setting is that um, they're trying to firm up the significance in the setting of what the supernal world is versus what the fallen world is. For instance, in the description of how Mage Site is going to work in the new system,
Yeah, it's
they've
not
made a
up all the time
distinction.
anymore, is it?
They've made a distinction between uh, what they call the supernal world and the supernal realms. So, like, essentially, magic and the symbolism of the real world are all around us in the fallen world, and with Mage Sight, you can perceive those things. But basically, the idea is that the supernal world represents truth, and the fallen world represents the lie, and so in effect, what you have to do to perform magic is to reinforce the supernal reality, or
You know what that sounds
basically
a lot
you.
like?
Hmm?
That sounds a lot. That
What
reminds
is
me a
it?
lot of Amber. Like the supernal world is the truth, and then you've got like the fallen world is like this filtered reflection of it. But you can still find bits of the truth here and there in the reflection. And I don't know.
Yeah, the idea of like
Okay.
using moonlight to scry on something is sort of like basically you using a symbol. You find a fallen world symbol for something that you want to evoke from the supernal world, and so there are a lot of ways to. I feel like there's a very wide open room for players to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
With uh, while at the same time, I think that more so um, than the way it worked before, it kind of forces you to work for it, to actually do the creativeness and not just
Yeah.
cut corners.
It's like the things you find in the fallen world, like various occult, this and that. It's not things that just are there in the fallen world. It's there because it probably has some relation to the supernal world. Maybe
Or
it's
at least maybe it should or
esoteric or
supposed.
Yeah,
far-fetched, but
right.
So have they
And
talked?
that's the thing, is like even a far fetched esoteric occult object does have does have some magical significance. If you have like, if you're trying to cast the right type of spell, that might be just the right thing, even if it's more far fetched. You can find something like a bit of lore that helps you cast a really ridiculous spell. Might
Mm-hmm.
come from a place that seems ridiculous in the context of the fallen world.
So do these yantras work for everyone, or do some people have yantras who work for them and that wouldn't work for other people?
I
Basically,
mean, they're
if you use moonlight to scry, could somebody else use like a camera to scry, if depending on what their own philosophy would be, or is that not a thing anymore?
yeah. I mean that. I think that kind of, in a way, harkens to the way Mage the Ascension regarded magic, which was like everybody has their own system of beliefs, and you have to believe in your magic to make it happen. This is a little bit less of that because everybody who can do magic can just do it. You can just force a spell out without any yantras. You can work exclusively as a psychic superhero who just uses the power of his concentration to just do spells.
Now I fly. Now
But
I shoot lightning.
I think, I mean, I think that every yantra that exists applies to every mage. It's just like context, and some of these are fairly general things like environment, or one of the yantras they list is actually concentration. I find that one kind of hard to understand, but I think it's intended to be it's sort of a gamble, kind of the way runes are, where it allows you to uh, it allows you to get a little extra juice from concentrating. But if your concentration lapses on the spell, its effect will end.
When somebody throws a flashbang in your face.
Um,
Shoots you in the head.
and
I really hope there's
runes,
different like clear levels of it. So like if you have like in the first edition, your dedicated tool, it would generally be something simple, and you would choose something that's easy to carry around with you and stuff like that. Like maybe stuff like that, or concentrating, or there might be like easy yantras where you can get a point here and there. But then if you really want like the big increase to die pools, then you're using valuable materials or sacrifices or what have you. Like that's kind of what I'm hoping to
I
get
mean,
out of this system.
they've basically described tools are seem to kind of take on a similar but different approach to the way they were described before. I think the idea of order and path tools is that they represent things that automatically have certain sympathy for you because they're made of the right material for your path, or what have you. They also basically they've included sacraments, like I had said before, are one of the things. Like if you have a basically some sort of sacrifice to consume or otherwise destroy in the process of spellcasting, it can give you a bonus. And they specify, this is one of the few that specifies, like, it gives you a single die bonus unless you have to spend significant effort to find the right item or component, and then you can increase it to like 2 or 3.
Like nuclear material or something like that. I'm thinking of things that are like super rare.
And sacrificing blood apparently is a pretty good sacrament if you have it.
Like I would imagine that
and
like giving up essence or mana in sufficient quantities.
I'm not so sure about that, but one other one that I just wanted to mention while we're still on Yantras, I'm not sure how much more we should belabor this, is sympathy is one of these Yantras. Basically, you have to have some sort of sympathetic tool to cast a sympathetic range spell with space. But one sort of change that they've made is, like, you don't need to have space to use a sympathetic tool if you have an object of significance to a person or a piece of their hair or blood. You can use a sympathetic yantra against them at whatever range is appropriate for you. It's probably going to be sensory or touch range to basically get a boost on the spell against them, even if you can't target them from a distance.
So like, you can basically use your limited sympathy even if you don't have the space required to touch them across the city.
I think in that case, I don't know exactly how it would be intended to work if you could just do better magic on somebody because you know them better, or if you have to have some sort of object or other material link to them.
Sure.
But I think I like the idea that is not just for space magic if you can manage it.
Yeah.
No, I think I like the idea of like maybe you have like a piece of hair or like like a childhood photograph of somebody, and you can, like, maybe like do better telepathy with them, or I mean, I guess if you want to go more extreme, you could ignite their pattern or something equally terrible.
Well, if you had like two
telepathy,
like childhood rivals that have a huge sympathy, maybe they could toss more powerful spells at each other. Or I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool.
One thing related to rotes that comes out of the Yantras category also, and they describe what rote mudras, which are described in the first edition but aren't like super important that you might remember them. Mudras are basically defined as like the gestures that you make when you're casting a spell from a rote. Usually you have to do some sort of bodily movements or other sort of stances to take advantage of a rote. And in effect, the way they do that now is rotes no longer replace the die pool that you use, but they do allow you, if you are able to use the rote mudras, they add the rote's skill to the die pool. So your die pool is still going to be Gnosis plus Arcanum for general purpose spellcasting, but much more potent than most Yantras, which add usually 1 or 2 dice. This will allow you to add, basically 2, 3, 4, 5 if you have a rote for it, which it sounds like rotes are meant to be very robust in the new rules.
Sure.
Which is good.
Can you use Mudra and Yantra then also at the same time?
Mudras are one category of Yantras, and the way they basically describe it is like the number of Yantras you can use in a single spell is capped by your Gnosis. It's it starts at 2. Like 1 or 2 gnosis, you get 2. 3 or 4, you get 3, and every 2 it goes up by 1 until 6.
And it's not
So
dice from your yantras; it's number of yantras. So if you have like 2
right,
particularly
so
potent yantras for a
mhm.
spell, you're banging on all cylinders with it.
If you have a rote and a tool, you're gonna the consequence though is in like combat time, you're only able to use 1 yantra at the same time as you cast a spell. Otherwise, you will have to spend an additional turn to incorporate more.
Sure.
So you might have to use 2 turns to. A starting character who has 1 or 2 gnosis can only get up to 2. They might have to spend 2 turns to get the most out of their spells, which I think is another thing that sort of harkens back to Mage the Ascension, where a very common thing with the very low spellcasting die pool you tended to have in that game was to spend a couple of turns basically ramping up an effect and then letting it go. This is a little bit like that, where you're kind of getting your ducks in a row and then trying to stick the spell you want.
Do you know if there's any overlap between rotes and tools? Like, are there rotes where like the mudra that's required, like to use firearms to shoot a lightning bolt, is to like have a cannon or something?
Oh my god.
That is not something that I've heard about. I kind of don't think specifically. Like there might be a rote where you're making cannon-like gestures, but
Sure.
I don't think that that's something that described.
What are cannon-like gestures?
Like, extending your hands and going pow pow. I don't know, cannon-like gestures that make you look like a cannon.
So like in game terms, the main
rapid-fire
restriction
cannon.
to requiring the mudras is that you have to have your hands free, you have to, have space, you have to not be bound or anything and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to read what the actual rules texts say about it, because I am taking some liberties with my understanding of the current system and what mudras mean in it.
Sure.
And in Tome of the Mysteries, there's a detailed description of different types of mudras, which I vaguely remember skimming because I was kind of like, they seemed a little flavorish at the time, and I didn't really need to understand them.
Sure.
But it might mean different things to different and in this case we're mainly talking about the masters who are making the rotes. So if your master thinks that what's important for your casting of this spell is cannon-like gestures, then you better damn well try to make a cannon-like gesture.
So you mentioned we were talking about mudras a lot. I just kind of want to bring it back to like the very basic thing in Mage, like spell casting, and that's changing a
Right.
lot. Like right now in second edition or first edition that we're playing, the big thing that is difficult and tricky is that in this huge long list of spells, every spell works differently. You roll your casting roll, and maybe there's some factors, and then maybe it requires you to like hit a certain threshold, or maybe you get penalized, or in the case of certain spells, both. And everything is like kind of all over the place. In second edition, they're going to have every spell work the same with like sort of these codified ways to modify or enhance it, and maybe a spell will have its individual rules, but it'll tie in to the subsystem that you know and love already. And I think I'm trying to remember the exact words for it. There was reach, which is a way to
Reach?
modify sort of the scope and add like other little secondary factors or abilities to the spell. And then there was factors, which subtracts from your die pool, and that's like the power, the numbers, the damage, the yards in the area, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like you get all these dice subtracted from your die pool, which is why you need these yantras we've been talking about to increase your die pool.
Yeah, you want
So
to
does reach and factors both detract from your die pool?
reach
Only
reach instead.
factors apply penalties.
Reach gives you, it puts you at risk for paradox. Like the better you are at casting a certain type of spell, like if you're trying to cast a level 2 effect and you have like 3 dots, then I believe you get more reach than a person who's trying to cast. And if you were trying to cast a level 3 effect and you have any 3 dots, I don't remember what the various ones are called, like weaving.
So you want more reach?
Reach lets you add.
Sort of exists in the current system.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
I was just saying reach sort of exists in the current system. Reach takes the place of a number of things, but like the thing in the first edition system where if you have 1 dot higher in the Arcanum than you need, you can apply like advanced area or advanced duration factors. That is now all couched in this one system that they're calling Reach. Also, the thing where like where certain spells are extended actions by default, but if you have a higher level, you can cast them as instant actions. That will kind of come into play with Reach. And the basic idea, as Lee was ramping up to, is that like there are no longer any covert or vulgar spells. All spells are created equal. You don't invoke Paradox for any spell you cast, as long as you don't spend more levels of reach than you get for free, which by default is 1 plus however many dots you have in excess of what you needed to cast the spell.
Okay.
So all spells kind of obey the same basic rules. I think they all spells by default require an extended. It's not an extended action anymore, but it is a ritual that you have to use. All spells target you or something that you're touching. I'm sure that there are probably some other baselines, but so like a quick and easy, like you gain a high enough level to cast a spell now. First thing that you're going to want to probably do is make it so that you can cast it instantly. You have 1 free reach with which to do that. But every reach that you use, like if you want to cast your new spell, say on that guy over in the other room, then you're going to have to probably reach 1 higher than your natural amount, which is when you start getting Paradox. The thing that I think is very interesting is that you can reach way farther than you should. You can. I don't think that there's a limit to how much you can reach. It just continues to increase how much Paradox you get.
This
What
is
was
the
that?
coolest thing about
Your
the new system
Paradox
to me.
no longer interacts with your die pool, right?
Your Paradox will now,
You can.
if you
there's
try to
two things.
contain the Paradox, if you successfully contain the Paradox, I think it is, you will take damage and take some internal Paradox effect, and
I
your
think
die
it's called
pool will not be
resist.
affected. If you release the Paradox, you will have your die pool penalized, and the effects of the Paradox will be external.
Okay.
So it's
So
it's
if you're being irresponsible with it, it penalizes you, and if you're trying to be responsible, it doesn't penalize you.
If you're trying to be responsible, it kills you.
Right, it kills you, but
I
it
mean,
doesn't penalize you
If you
succeeding at your action.
succeed in being responsible, it sounds like it's
Okay.
not guaranteed anymore.
I think
Nope. Paradox is still dice rolling.
kind of a story style thing that I really like about that is that your body, and I mean your mind, but most visibly your body, will be marked if you're trying to contain your paradoxes, so that the stigma of invoking paradoxes will follow you around. People will be able to see it. But if you're really irresponsible with it, you can just leave the scene of the havoc that you've caused and just pretend you never did. I kind of like that.
I love
That
that
sort
it's
of-
called Reach. Like,
Mhm.
I love the idea that
Yeah.
mages are reaching, are like grasping, like
Right.
far beyond what they should. I think that's
Yeah.
like one of the most cleverly named mechanics I've ever heard of. And I also love that it makes you want to risk paradox.
It's
Like in very rarely in Mage the Awakening, like do you ever really feel the need to risk like extreme paradox, especially with the way you can internalize it and how it's not really that dangerous until you get up to like doing really crazy response, like constantly spellcasting.
I'm never doing anything cool when I get paradox. I'm raising my strength when no one is around, and it's vulgar,
healing when you're on
and
the
I
other side of a
roll
building.
really poorly a couple times, and now I'm getting paradox. Like, it's never interesting.
Yeah,
Right.
I think one of the benefits of this is that you also don't have to, if there's like social stigma attached to having paradox, so you can be really reckless and just let it go. You can resist, and then you still have that stigma associated with you. And you can also be conservative about it, and that actually is something that some mages would want to do. They might not want to use paradox because there's actual implications associated with using it, even if you
Oh.
do resist it.
Yeah, like if you're playing a character who's trying to raise your status in the Concilium, maybe you don't want to be walking around branded
Yep.
all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Or if you're playing a guardian.
So which is why are you a guardian and why are you glowing like the sun? Oh, it's my yantra. I don't know.
But yeah,
Another-
oh, sorry.
Another note about paradox, just in general, is that you only invoke paradox if you are reaching beyond your grasp, unless they're sleepers witnessing obvious magical effects, in which case you also will invoke paradox by default.
Long
you don't-
long gone will be the days of
Mhm.
ice cream shotgun not invoking paradox.
So
Okay.
basically,
the
by
spells that are
removing
covert and
one of-
vulgar in the current in first, it's ridiculous which ones are covert.
It's so
pure
arbitrary.
nonsense.
One of the other things that I really liked was Ed and I were talking about this is if you go if you start to invoke paradox but bring it down through like Muja or something, you still if your paradox goes back down to 0 dice, you still have a chance die of getting it.
The
as
minimum
long
is
as you
1.
have
Is the chance die?
Right.
yeah. But if you don't
don't get
past it,
unless you're reaching, but if you
Yeah.
do, then you can't mitigate it down back to 0. It will always be a chance die, which isn't much, but still, I mean, I feel like the interesting part about this mechanic is that at this point in time in the current game, you have enough mana to usually play it safe. When you're the one driving how many paradox dice I'm rolling, that is not going to be the case anymore. I feel like a lot of people are going to be reaching insanely far,
yes.
and it's just going to
Which is
be
very
much too much.
I will be honest. I am planning to just reach and just reach and reach and reach until
Mhm.
it burns me alive.
And I think some of the effects, I mean, most of the spell effects that they've previewed so far, first of all, they're pretty much all new things that they've previewed. They haven't like translated any existing spells, but
Sure.
they've sort of contextualized a lot of new things that they're going to try to do in the magic system. I'm pretty sure almost all of them have at least one. Well, many of them have at least one example of something specific to that spell that you can get by adding more reach.
yeah, like the
So-
healing one. The healing
think,
one
like-
was you can
Yeah.
remove for adding a reach. You can remove the scars when you heal. Otherwise, they're still there. It's pretty cool.
There's kind of like,
Yeah.
and I for when it becomes house rules before the actual rules exist, I think
Aw.
it's going to be interesting because, well, if you all are willing to try to familiarize yourself with the practices, and there are 13 of them, and they're actually pretty intuitive, I think, once you get used to them. The way they explain how magical healing works in this, I think it was a forum post that I linked to recently, is they say like it is a spell that is using, oh, I can't even remember now which practice it is. Patterning? Or I think it's not patterning, but it's whatever's at level 3.
No, I don't remember.
Anyway, the point is that they're basically saying you're using magic to cause the body to do something it can do on its own, to heal itself. and you spend one reach to, you can spend one reach to make it so that the healing doesn't leave any marks or scars as though it was natural healing, but rather like it was magical. But I think like even beyond just going up one level, the next level practice would probably be sufficient because you're going to be able to do things with that flesh that you couldn't just do. So like you can make it do stuff it's not supposed to do, like just knit itself back together seamlessly.
Yeah.
Getting down to brass tacks, if we're talking about hurling lightning bolts here, because that's important.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
You've got a die pool. You can subtract from. Okay, your damage starts out at your Arcanum rating. So let's say you've got forces 4, and so you've got a damage 4 lightning bolt.
Mm-hmm.
You can subtract additional dice to apply damage factors to increase your damage.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It sounds an awful lot like it is using the same basic metric as first edition, which is -2 dice for +1 potency.
Now, do we know for sure, yay or nay, if you can gain more damage from extending your reach?
The way it sounds is that you can't really use reach that way. I think they
You might be able to make it aggravated.
The way they make it sound is level 3 attack spells, the practice of fraying, always deal bashing damage. There does not seem to be any wiggle room for that. I guess it does say direct damage spells, so it is possible that maybe aimed spells can circumvent that somehow by, for instance, creating a ball of fire or a bolt of lightning or something. Level 4 unraveling practice spells do lethal damage by default, but you spend 1 reach and 1 mana, and you can get that upgraded to aggravated.
Sure.
To hear them describe it in one of the blog posts since Dave started posting again after the long absence, where he describes the different practices. I think the post is just called like the creative arts or creative thaumaturgy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They basically describe the level 5 practice of unmaking as you can create a spell to instantly kill someone with this practice. You're no longer dealing with lethal versus aggravated damage. You're dealing with
existing versus not existing.
Yeah, and in this same forum post that I was referencing, Dave himself talks about how like defense against aimed spells is a thing, but resisting and contesting spells isn't a thing anymore. He basically says that you can't resist or contest spells cast on you, but you can withstand them, which is, I guess, a new mechanic that sounds awfully similar to contesting them.
Sure.
But the difference is basically to say that when a mage forms an imago, that is essentially them enforcing their will on the world, and like basically no amount of like robust body can get in the way of you basically saying that body collapses into a shriveled heap. But there's probably some level to which I guess maybe it can.
Well, one of the posts has referenced something called a Clash of Wills.
Okay, Clash of Wills is a thing from 2nd edition Vampire and Werewolf, and it's probably going to follow the exact same pattern, which is essentially, instead of worrying about like the various potencies of effects in the world and how strong this thing is versus that thing, when 2 different mages or the effects that they've created go up against each other, those 2 mages are going to roll. I think it's like Gnosis plus something. I can't remember.
Gnosis plus Arcanum.
There you go. So it's basically like, instead of having to worry about like how potent that spell is when I'm trying to dispel it, we just roll our dice against each other, and whoever wins decides the contest.
I kind of like that.
The reason I brought it up is because their example of one of the attainments was the Involute Soul on Death, which is what lets people resist reflexively. against a lot of anything that would affect their soul or being, like with that. And that seemed kind of like what you were talking about a little bit with resisting spells that would just cause instant death.
I'm
or
pretty
they
sure
would
that
just
there's
try to pull your soul out.
Right. Well, one class of spells that would cause instant death.
I suspect that there's going to be something more innate that will allow you to withstand effects. The example that he gave on the boards was like, somebody trying to control your mind, and it's like something that these all or nothing effects will have some mechanic for not falling victim to them, but for the most part, like an aimed spell fits in the role that it does because it is. I think that it's going to default to being fairly dangerous. Like you can get a high amount of damage on it, but you can defend against it. You can duck behind cover. Like a direct affecting damage spell is going to be hard to rack up a lot of damage on, but it is gonna just nail you. You're defending against that with your health. That is pretty much the barrier against like
I
life
have to
force
wonder
assault.
if like creature type is going to factor into this. Like it would seem really weird if like you have level 5 death so you can just kill a mage, where if you win the roll and they lose, they're dead. Like that would be strange, but a level 5 death effect to just kill like a person who's just like a sleeper, that
Yeah.
might fall more in line with the
And
game.
they basically we had a couple of mentions, Rory, most recently from the blog post on attainments, which is kind of a big thing because they've brought up like a lot of these common effects among the arcana, or these like niche powers that some arcana get and some just don't get anything like it. They're now basically making every arcanum give you an attainment, basically an innate ability at each level, and each arcanum gives you mage armor at level 2, and the mage armors are supposed to have different abilities. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if some of them made you a little more durable to that sort of thing, but at the same time, I also think like there still is such a thing as the level 2 arcanum practice of shielding. It might be one of those things where you have to customize basically what your mage's like defensive setup is if you want to make sure you're not going to get like your uh, life 5 just like, I'm going to make the thing that is alive not alive anymore, and then they're like, maybe that is hard to withstand. Maybe there's a spell you can use to make it a little easier. I'm interested in seeing like, I like the idea of defensive spells that aren't just mage armor. That's one of the things that's sort of worn on me, is that like I want to use my arcanum to protect myself, and they have in the first edition at least they have a template for that, and it's called mage armor, and I'm just a little bored with it.
I like the idea for mage specifically that these all or nothing effects exist because they make a lot of sense with what you're doing. But also, like, just looking at pretty much any role-playing game we've been playing, each edition just cuts instant death and changes it to damage, etc., etc. Like, that happens for a reason, so I'm interested. It's kind of a bold move. It's kind of like going back to that. And it'll be interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah. I want to see too. I am likewise a little skeptical. I hope it fits in the game world and in the mechanics in a way that isn't just unpleasant.
Yeah.
It would make fighting opponents of higher level incredibly difficult if they can just say, "Oh no, you're dead. You lose this fight because I'm better than you."
And I imagine that there's probably going to be some sort of incentive. I mean, I don't know. I want to say an incentive not to just do that every time, but I sort of feel like it's going to have to be some sort of a challenge to just make that your entire MO.
maybe like the reach required to use an instant death effect on a supernatural creature is higher, and I don't know. I'm just
It's
throwing stuff out
possible.
there.
They could go a lot of different ways with it. I for one thought, like, with the way that they were changing like spell factors to be all on the front end, you could just set up your spell factors to have a spell that
The
it
7
directly
aggravated
inflicts 7 or 8 aggravated damage, and that is essentially your instant death spell. I kind of thought it was like uh, a strange thing. It's possible too that there might be some sort of potency thing at play. Like, you need to have a potency on the effect of like their stamina or higher or something like that to make it end them. I'd like to see what they do with it. I hope it isn't stupid, but again, house rules are being what they are. We can always just pretend it doesn't exist.
That
I
is so true.
want for the rules to stand on their own, but it's always possible that I'll like mine better. Yeah, I'm
Always possible.
I'm pretty psyched about this game.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point in the development where I have no idea how much longer it's going to be before it exists.
It has been that. It has been in the. I have no idea how much longer. However, it does. Like, they do keep on moving up the ladder,
Yeah.
and it is very. It's growing ever closer, and I'm very excited.
Yeah.
To
Now,
see what
right
they have
now,
next.
it is in development, which I believe means that they're probably going to be doing some playtesting, some tinkering with the rules, making sure all of the text agrees with some sort of internal logical consistency, and then I have no idea what they do. I mean, I think that it's gotta
Editing, I
like
think, and then more
they gotta
development.
edit it, and then they gotta do a lot of like more development, layout stuff is gonna take a long time. Anyway, my point is that boy, I want it so bad. If I had a fistful of monies, I would like shake them at them.
Less than
That's-
2 months away from Gen Con, they might make some announcements then.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Well, yeah, you gotta
Hopefully.
tell me. I need it so much, and
and the truth comes out. In the end, we all just want it real bad.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like the Mage mechanics have needed an update for a while, and I still feel like it seems like they put together a really good team for it. And having Dave be on it seems like a slam dunk. That guy knows so much about Mage. Incredible how much he knows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he knows more about it than ever before because he's the one who's deciding what's in the book.
That is true.
So why did they go with Sanskrit?
What do you
Why
mean?
not?
Oh, with the
Yantra, Muja.
that is kind of I think that is even another spiritual descendant from Mage the Ascension. There were a lot of expressions and names that kind of came from there. I feel like I read somewhere what probably in the article on Yantras, now that I think of it, where they characterized why they went there. I think they already had Mudra in the bag from first edition, and yeah, I don't know.
May as well just carry on.
I'm really glad, I'm hopeful at least that they're going to include more mysticism and occult type elements, because it seems like that
Right.
was all fluff before, and it never mattered, and it didn't have any actual effect on the system basically ever. So like, you might talk about a legacy that has this fluff, but it never actually matters in any way.
I think the legacy fluff before was more hindering and didn't do as much as you would expect, given how I don't know.
I mean, like,
It was.
on a spell, and the spell will have a rote, and that rote will be connected to one group, and it will say a little bit of fluff about it, but that never mattered. That never came in. That never affected any of the thing, and everybody learned that rote eventually if they wanted to, and it never had anything. And I'm hoping that, from what you've said, it sounds like with using yantras and stuff like that, you can bring in more of the kind of mystical element, the traditional views of magic and esoteric thought
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah.
and the way I understand it from what I've read so far is like the characterization of how the Free Council uses magic is going to be kind of supported by, I think it's a merit that basically allows them to get certain benefits from using more modern techniques, or not necessarily modern but more innovative techniques instead of strictly traditional or esoteric magical tools.
I
That
wonder
sounds
Which I
if
think is
cool.
there's
kind of
gonna be
interesting.
any. I wonder if there's gonna be any crossover with that and like some of the other weird legacies. Like I know that like the legacy I've been looking at getting is like a
Hmm.
forward-thinking spirit mages, and I'm like
Yeah,
somewhere between the Free Council and basically everybody else. I'm excited. I think.
yeah. I mean, I'm
Oh
pretty
god, and the thing with
psyched.
the legacies getting 5 attainments just blows my mind. There's
I
So
so
you
mean,
much
get
good stuff coming.
attainments from Arcanum and from Legacies now?
Yes. I hope
yeah, I'm
they.
kind of.
I hope they change the name of one of them.
I think if I recall correctly, they just call legacy attainments legacy attainments,
Ah,
whereas attainments are kind of a general thing now.
sure.
Because
One
rotes for
thing,
spells and rote skills isn't at all confusing.
one thing that
That
I
was
found strange.
terrible.
One thing I found a little strange about the way they were kind of describing attainments that you get for Arcana levels is that the spellcasting system by default now uses like immediate actions, and instead of extended actions, you use a ritual, which is a time frame minimum. I think still based on your gnosis, but it is no longer an extended roll. You have to do the ritual, which has the attendant cost of taking a lot of time and the attendant benefit of giving you the freedom to use as many yantras as you have available from your gnosis.
Yeah.
But the consequence of that is that they've basically taken supernal summoning, which is one thing that existed in the game before, but was kind of in just one source book and not really in the center of the system, and also things like enchanting items with Prime. And they've basically taken those things that they still want, magical feats that they still want to involve extended actions, and turned them into attainments, which I guess I kind of like. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna feel about it. I sort of think like I'm okay with them taking um, enchanting items out of the normal rotation and putting it in its own area, because I really want for the system of how you make them and the system of how they work to match up for a little while. But at the same time, I sort of feel like there are bound to be more things that you wish would work like that, but aren't going to have the freedom to, because you've already decided what all. I guess there's a total of 50 attainments, which of which I think 30 or so are going to be identical,
Mm-hmm.
and um, that sounds about right. Yeah, it sounds like every Arcanum has equivalent attainments at levels 1, 2, and 1, 3, and 5, and you get your own kind of special stank at 2 and 4.
Well, Mage Armor is an attainment now, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was 2.
Right.
But they also
I
say
guess.
lesser utility attainments are at 2 as well. So I
Sure.
think
I guess
you might
that's
be able to
what I
get more than one attainment at some levels.
Yeah, I suppose you're probably right, and I think some of them are going to be a little bit more um, share worthy. Like, I, I mean, like, I think sympathetic casting is pretty potent, but I sort of feel like between the time and fate
Oh.
continuum,
Oh,
where you
okay.
had like hanging spells and and like contingent effects and those sorts of things. I'm not sure exactly where in the attainments that they're going to fit, but I sort of feel like they must.
So in the brief little posting they had, I have it open right now because I was looking at it. They list lesser utility attainments, and they mention at least briefly sympathetic range and hung spells and universal counter spell. And this is for, so there would be 2 dots. Same as when you get armor, that those are all listed in that section. They also list a matter attainment that would allow you to do advanced duration without spending reach, for example.
Right.
So you need
That
2
one's-
of an arcana
yeah.
to do something. That's an attainment.
Right. And
Okay, I like
there,
that.
I think, like, there were a couple that had the same thing at 4. Notably, Fate gave you the thing where people trying to affect your destiny or control your mind could be countered. They previewed the death version, which is essentially a very similar effect for resisting harm or negative influence on your soul. I very much suspect that whatever they come up with in level 4 attainment space for time is going to have something to do with contingent effects, but I might have that wrong.
That all sounds really cool.
I want to see what those level 4 attainments are. I think they're going to be some of the cooler attainments that exist. The lesser utility attainments, I feel like the interesting ones are probably going to be the ones that we at this point have no idea what they could possibly be. Like, I don't know, forces or life or what was the other, spirit? You know.
Well, they say death and spirit will have to do with seeing across twilight things appropriately as their level 2 attainments.
I mean, that's okay, I guess. That's why I'm bringing up forces. Like, I don't know what they would put at that level for forces. I think the matter one is kind of like, it's causing a lot of conversation, like, on the boards. What I mean is to say, like, I mean, some people are saying it like this is good, and some people are saying like this is bad. But what everybody is saying is like, well, what does it mean if they're basically using this space as a forum to correct what they believe are imbalances in the system? I guess, I mean, some people think like this should be a neat power that doesn't just serve to patch. I think the idea of matter is that like these are supposed to be enduring effects, and a lot of the things you're doing are
which is why it's
meant to last.
Duration. Yeah.
But then people are talking about symmetry with like things that maybe somebody said maybe forces will allow you to use advanced range, and to his credit, Dave kind of said, nope, that's not it. He didn't say what it was. We can make an edit
Jeff's
point.
back.
Oh, he's gone.
I got
Oh,
disconnected.
there he is.
Oh, now he's
There
back.
he is. Welcome back, Jeff.
You did it.
Are we back?
How long,
We are
how long
back.
were you gone?
Oh, just like 10 seconds.
Okay.
I thought you had overheated and shut down.
So we have been doing this for a while. I mean, are we? I feel like we've had a pretty rousing combo about Mage.
That's
Yeah,
true. I
so,
could talk about Mage for a lot longer.
But we ought to
But-
not
Absolutely.
to.
That's true.
If
And also, we'll be playing it soon enough. Like, well, I say soon enough, but I mean not. I mean, you know, eventually,
Monday.
when it comes
we
out,
play it most Mondays.
Yeah,
And we'll
I just
certainly
mean
be
we'll
playing
be
second
playing-
edition.
at the moment it's available,
Yeah.
we will be jumping on that. Like,
I'm
I'll
going
be
to try
honest.
to start incorporating some of these new changes, like for real. It will involve a little bit of you know, understanding and support from everybody, even when things seem like they suck.
oh man,
I
I'll be
think
your
Other people can do
underwire.
that.
I don't like
Get it?
that.
Because the support will be your
Suspend-
I
underwire.
understand what you mean. But...
Suspenders would have been more appropriate.
All right,
You're right.
Underwear.
we should.
So anyway, Mage the Awakening, if you've never played it, it's worth checking out. We're really excited about second edition. The guy's name is Dave Brookshaw, who's sort of
Yep.
spearheading
Yeah.
it, is that right?
He's the developer of Mage right
JP
now.
is what he goes by on
So,
a lot of the internet.
He's pretty cool. He communicates with people during development. He's running a blog that's sort of
On
teasing
Onyx
things
Path?
here and there on Onyx Path. So
theonyxpath.com is where you can look at those.
Yeah, and they have like
Yeah.
they have a bunch of stuff. Like they've constantly got new World of Darkness 2.0
Mhm.
stuff in development, and I think that a lot of it is really banging.
So,
Most of their new games have at least some open development dimension to them, so pretty much every week you can find some of that there.
Yeah, it's pretty hip.
so if
Reading
you're
about the other
interested
ones
in,
is surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah, if you like White Wolf
Yeah.
and you're interested in Mage, check that out. It's definitely
For sure.
worth taking a look. So yeah, we're gonna head out here at houserule.com. Feel free to tweet us at houserule. Otherwise, come check out the website. We're working on a lot of stuff. We got a couple of campaigns we're running on there, including the Mage game, which we're running on most Mondays, and then Lee and I are both running games on the weekends. And so you can check us out on Twitch TV at House Roll Gaming, and yeah, hope to see you guys and chat with you and all that stuff.
Yeah. Later.
Yep.
Thanks
you for
again. Later, y'all.
Watch listening. Listen, watch. No, same thing.
Bye.
What are you calling?
Whistling.